It's college football summer school here on Football.com's Google Plus page. My name is Aaron Morse, and today we are joined by Football.com video contributor Matt Phifer for the ACC and the American Athletic Conference editor Veair Green. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us as we break down some hot topics in college football from spring ball. Looking forward to the summer, and then, of course, college football finally returning in the fall. Starting with, some of your thoughts on spring ball. Who might have emerged based on some of your analysis of some of the teams throughout the country as maybe a dark horse contender for making the college football playoff next season? Maybe someone who people aren't really talking about that much right now. Matt, let's start with you.
Well, you know what? Looking at some of the different teams, it's a hard thing to do, but you know what team that I don't feel people are talking about or giving respect to recently has been Oklahoma State. I think when you think the Big 12, you think about Oklahoma, you think about Baylor. Baylor's really kind of coming forward. But Oklahoma State, they got a nice, talented, they got a deep wide receiving core. They got guys like Blake Webb there who was making good plays in the spring. They've got a good guy in Ashton Captain to take over for Justin Gilbert. And there's a lot of talk about Tyreek Hill, too. They've got a tough schedule. Obviously, they start right off with Florida State and Arlington. But if they in Texas, but if they can even give Florida State a game, I'd watch Oklahoma State because I think, if you look, they don't have their toughest games in the Big 12 till the end of the year. They could be that team that they're competitive every year, and I could see them sneaking their way in as that fourth spot in the playoff.
Interesting. Oklahoma State, a possible dark horse according to Matt. Veair, who's your dark horse?
I'm going to go with another team that's from a big division that's not getting a lot of love, and I think Wisconsin. Everybody's talking about Michigan State, Ohio State, but I love running back Melvin Gordon, one of my favorite running backs in college football, one of my Heisman candidates coming into the season. And they have one of the most interesting players in converted safety, Tanner McEvoy, who can bring the option games to that offense. Combined with Melvin Gordon, I think that can be a great offense to keep up with Ohio State if they meet in the Big Ten title game. But also their defense is small. They did lose Chris Borland, but they're small, they're fast, and their schedule. They do not play the projected top 4 teams from the Big East. So if they can meet Michigan State or Ohio State in that title game and win, they could sneak in and cause some chaos in the college playoff system.
And Veair, I tell you what, as someone who covers Northwestern, Melvin Gordon, I still have nightmares about him. He can flat out play, so I definitely see where you're coming from there. Now, we talked about dark horse contenders. Now, there are people, there are the teams that everyone talks about, obviously. Your Alabamas, your Oklahomas, your Auburns, your Florida States. Among some of the big-time contenders, what team might have a unit that might be so weak or so questionable it might undermine their hopes of making the playoffs? Veair, let's start with you.
I'm going to go with Texas A&M. I feel like in the SEC they have a potential to make some noise if they have some big victories. They lost their quarterback. Who everybody knows his name. But they also lost Matt Joker, who was the backup. He's transferred. And the guy who was supposed to be the starter, Kenny Hill, got into some trouble. He got suspended. And now they have to bring in another quarterback to compete with him. So I think Texas A&M quarterbacks are a big question mark. So with them, they may actually need a 12th man on offense to help that offense get through, but they have some big-time issues.
Well, yeah, their quarterback might be a question mark, and we know their entire defense is a question mark, it seems like.
Yeah.
So that might be tough for A&M there in the SEC. Matt, what contender might have a fatal flaw, in your opinion?
Well, I think if you look at Clemson, their offensive line in their spring game looked really overmatched. The defense was running over them. And that's not going to be obviously a good thing with a new quarterback. I mean, you're going to have Cole Stout in there as a starting quarterback. He doesn't necessarily, might not necessarily have the same legs as Taj Boyd. We really don't know. He's supposed to be good on the ground, but obviously when you put a new guy in there, you want to have a good offensive line. Gifford Timothy is decided to pretty much just hang up his cleats and finish things up. So I think Clemson could really have a rough time, with the offensive line if they can't improve going into the fall.
All right, and last question for you, gentlemen. Of course, let's talk defending national champion Florida State, led by, of course, Heisman winner Jameis Winston, who's had a rough offseason, to say the least. A lot of controversy surrounding him. The latest one, kind of a silly one, but stealing crab legs, I don't know. But Jameis Winston, are his off-the-field issues going to keep going and going, or do you think this is just a blip on the radar towards another sensational season? Matt, let's start with you.
Well, I mean, Jameis Winston, he shows great poise on the field. He's one of those great leaders on the field. So it's really kind of dumbfounding to see something like crab legs, and then I think the excuse was even worse in some ways. Oh, I forgot to pay. But still, at the same time, I personally think this is going to kind of be the end of the issues that we see with Jameis Winston. And if this is the only issue, it's not going to affect the team at all, and I don't really think it's going to affect Florida State or in terms of trying to get another national title, or Jameis Winston in terms of the NFL draft. But he does seem to show sometimes he doesn't make good decisions. So it's something that Florida State's going to be watching very closely. I'm sure that they're going to be watching him very closely until he leaves campus. But in all honesty, I don't really think we're going to see any more problems out of Jameis. I think it's just going to be looking at his amazing play the rest of the way through his college career.
Veair, your thoughts on famous Jameis?
Famous James. Well, first of all, crab legs. I hate crab legs, so I don't understand why anybody would want to steal crab legs. But that's neither here nor there. I feel like he has to understand he's under the microscope as a quarterback for a big-time program, not to mention the Heisman winner. He has to understand any small thing you do is going to get blown out of proportion, whether you're stealing crab legs or any other thing. He has to understand, stay focused, don't fall into the distractions, and hopefully for his sake, this will be the last of the small major things that comes his way. But he has to understand there's going to be a lot of people coming his way who hadn't always been in his life, and he just got to learn to, get those things out of his life. But he has to stay focused because any small thing he does is going to get blown out of proportion times 100. So for his sake and his family's sake, I don't want them having to answer questions about all his distractions. So he just needs to stay focused and hopefully stay out of trouble.
Absolutely. All right. Matt Phifer, Veair, thanks so much for joining us here on Football.com's College Football Summer School. We hope you learned something out there in the audience, and make sure you check out Football.com all throughout the off-season. College football may not be, producing content right now, but we are, so make sure you keep checking us out there on Football.com. And my name's Aaron Morse. Thanks so much for tuning in.